guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to my third, is this the third? Yes, it's the third book club wrap-up video, and today we're going to be talking about March's book, which, as you guys know, I was so excited for this book, most anticipated book of the entire year, and I was so excited to read this, so I decided to pick it for the book club, and that is Sarah J. Maas, House of Earth and Blood, or Crescent City, and I was so excited for this book, you guys have no idea. I'm a Sarah J. Maas fan, I love her, and I think that she just writes the most amazing novels. I get so, attached to her characters so quickly, and her world building is always so good in my opinion, that I am never let down by Sarah J. Maas's work, and I was so excited for this one, and I was not disappointed. I'm just gonna start off by saying I gave this book 5 beautiful stars, and I think I might even give this a gold star. If you guys didn't know, I have a gold star system, so every year I can give gold stars, and gold stars are like 5-star books that extend the 5-star mark. So it's kind of like, you know, when you have those books that just mean so much to you, they like make it onto your favorites list on Goodreads. This is definitely a 5-star for me with a gold star. So I absolutely love this. I think it's so good, and I was just very, very happy with it. So if you're watching this video and you don't know what this book is about, it's an urban fantasy setting, so it's kind of more in like the now. It's not like a historical type of book, and it's a fantasy world. So you have all sorts of different fantasy creatures, paranormal creatures, you have angels, you have demons, you have fae, mermaids, fairies, pretty much everything that you can think of that is paranormal or fantasy based. And our main character Bryce is fae, and she has a friend Danica who is a shapeshifter. And she is really, really close to this pack of wolves, and basically in the beginning of the story there is this murder that happens, and it's devastating, right? So Bryce is asked by the governor, who is an archangel, to help solve this murder. And because Bryce was tied to this horrific murder, he thinks that she can help kind of like solve it and things like that. And so she is put on this mission to figure out this murder and all of this kind of thing. And in the process, she's given a fallen angel named Hunt Athalar, who is basically like an assassin for the archangel Micah, who told her to go on this mission. And he is there to protect her so she doesn't get into trouble, things like that. So they're trying to figure out this murder through the whole entire book, and that's basically all I'm gonna say about it. This book definitely has that slow burn romance to it that Sarah J. Maas is really good at. This book I would definitely say is extremely slow burn. She is just phenomenal at writing a good slow burn, and it's definitely has that in it. It's definitely Sarah J. Maas's voice. I feel like when you read this, like, it feels like a Sarah J. Maas novel. She writes what she's good at, fantasy romance. This is her first adult novel. Her A Court of Thorns and Roses was new adult, but it was like marketed as young adult. And this is her first actual adult, but to be honest with you, I feel like to a certain degree, A Court of Thorns and Roses felt more adult than this one did. So you're not getting like extreme adult content in this book. It's definitely more vulgar, it has more violence in it, more blood and guts, that kind of thing. But other than that, I don't feel like it's any worse than like A Court of Thorns and Roses. So that's kind of the basic synopsis. Like I said, very Sarah J. Maasy, slow burn romance, all that kind of stuff, but I'm gonna go ahead and jump right into the spoilers because I feel like if you are part of this book club, you already know what it's about because you read it. But if you haven't read this book, I definitely recommend going to read it before you watch the rest of this video. But I'm just gonna talk spoilers, talk about the things that I liked, things that I didn't like, and all that kind of stuff. So just know, starting now, you'll get spoiled. Okay, so let's first talk about characters. So I absolutely love Sarah J. Maas's characters all the time. They're always so good. She's so good at developing characters. And one of the characters actually in this book that I really, really liked that we didn't get to see a lot of, obviously, was Connor. And when I was introduced to Connor, and as I kind of got to know who Connor was throughout this whole story, it really made me realize how much I love and adore Sarah J. Maas's character building, because we didn't even get to know Connor that well. We got like 100 pages of Connor, and I was already sold on Connor. Like, I loved him as a character. Like, if she would have never met Hunt, I would have been sold on Connor. I'd been like, he's the perfect man for you, just go with him, he's sweet, he's cute, I love him. And I was so sad when we didn't get a lot of Connor. But I really loved Sarah J. Maas's ability to write him in the short amount of time that she did write him. I just thought it was amazing, and it just shows Sarah J. Maas's strength in that area. I also loved Bryce. I'm not a huge fan of characters in books that are like bitchy for no reason. Similar to like Nesta from A Court of Thorns and Roses, it's just not something that I like in characters, and Bryce had kind of this quality at the very beginning of the book, and I never like that quality in characters. It just drives me nuts because I'm not really that kind of person. I'm just not a mean person, and so when I see that in characters, I get really frustrated. And I felt like a lot of the times in this book, Bryce was just unnecessarily mean to Hunt, and it was making me mad. Like, I hate it when characters are just rude for no reason. And she did have that quality to her sometimes, and I feel like sometimes authors go that route with characters to make them seem strong, if that makes sense, like a strong female character, so they make them like rude and kind of mean unnecessarily. And I kind of feel like Sarah J Maas went that direction with Bryce. But as the story went on, I actually really started to like Bryce more because we saw a lot of change in her, and I think that you saw a lot of vulnerability in her, and she was masking it with her kind of rude, you know, qualities, if that makes sense. So I did like how her evolution kind of happened throughout the book. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Serpent and Dove, and the main girl character in that book, what was her name again? I always forget characters' names. But Bryce reminded me a little bit of her to a certain degree. But I did really end up liking Bryce by the end, and she was a great character. I really, really liked her. And I loved Hunt so much. Like, the way he's described in this book, like physically, is like what I like in a guy. So I was all for it the entire time, and I loved his personality. I loved their banter. I just thought it was so cute, and I loved this relationship. My other favorite character, well, I have two other favorite characters. Lahaba, I think that's how you pronounce her name. Such a good character, and when she died, I died. Like, I literally got teary-eyed when she died and she sacrificed herself because she was such an endearing, cute character. Like, I loved her personality. Like, she just had a crush on Hunt, and she was such like a cute, quirky little fairy, and I just adored her. And I loved how she sacrificed herself, and I just thought it was such a good addition to the story because I loved her so much. And that was a very, very sad moment, but she was definitely one of my favorite characters throughout the whole thing. She definitely kind of gave like this comedic relief. Like, this book would not be the same without Lahaba, I feel like. And then also Danica. I loved Danica, and when she came back kind of at the end, I was like, yes. Like, it was so good, and her relationship with Bryce, like, I loved their relationship, even though we didn't get very much of it, obviously. Like, she died pretty early on, but I still loved her character, especially when she came back at the end for the drop. Like, loved her character. The world building was great, but one thing that I can say about Sarah J Maas, and I think about this a lot, and it's the one thing that I don't love about Sarah J Maas's books, which is a lot to say because I really, really adore her books a lot, but I felt this way with A Court of Thorns and Roses and that whole series, but her books are very long-winded, and she does a great job with world building, but sometimes I feel like there gets to be a point in her books, and this happened with every single book in the ACOTAR series, where they start to drag. And I felt this way with A Court of Mist and Fury, which is one of my favorite books of all time, but there was a point in that novel as well where I was like, okay, like, it started to drag just a little bit. And I just feel like this is pretty common with Sarah J Maas's books. Like, I felt like there was a point in this book where she was doing so much world building, which was great because it made the book what it was, and I feel like it's worth it in the end, but it kind of started to get a little bit repetitive right around the middle. And I knew that it was going to start switching up soon, so I kept pushing through, but there was definitely a little short spot right in the middle that got repetitive. To a certain degree, I feel like this book could have maybe been 100 pages shorter. I think they could have edited it down just a little bit. It's one of those things where you know you need that world building to make the book and the series so good, but sometimes it just gets like to be a little much, you know? Another thing that actually surprised me a lot about this book, and this was something that kind of was disappointing to me, there was like no smut in this book, which I thought for sure there was going to be smut in this book because it is her first adult romance, and so I thought that this was her like trying to grasp at a way to put more smut in her books, because I know Sarah J Maas likes smut. I know she doesn't shy away from it, and so I was like, okay, well, she's doing an adult, you know, fantasy romance. There's gonna be smut in this, and there wasn't. There was just that one scene, which it was a good scene, but I was really surprised that she didn't push it a little bit farther. I'm kind of glad though at the end, because I think the second book is going to be really good, and she's definitely going to put their first time in the second book, because if they don't, that's going to be a huge letdown for the fans. She has to put it in the book. So I have a feeling that she's going to start the second book right where they left off. She would have to. So can we please talk about Bryce's drop? That was such an amazing scene. I absolutely adored it, and I just couldn't get over Danica coming back for her drop and helping her through that whole entire thing, and it was just so good and so well done. And I was watching Sarah J. Maas's live show and said that scene where she drops and then Danica comes back to help her with her drop and the ascent and everything was actually the first scene that she thought of for this entire series. So before she thought of like the plot line or anything like that, that scene was the first scene that she thought of to kind of kickstart this book. And I thought that was really, really interesting because in my opinion, that was the best scene of the entire book. And so I loved it and it made me love Danica even more. And I just thought it was so, so interesting. And I think it's gonna be cool to see if Danica somehow comes back at all. I don't know. It's gonna be weird if Danica's not in the rest of the books because I really did love her character and I loved like Bryce and Danica together. Like everybody wants that best friend, you know what I mean, that Bryce and Danica have with each other, and it would be really weird not to see them in future books. I love that scene. It was probably my favorite scene in the entire book. I also love the scene where Bryce was like almost dying and she's like, I'm gonna die, and then Hunt jumps out of the helicopter and then falls on top of her, and I just love that scene. That's such a cute scene. Like I love scenes like that. So I loved too that Bryce didn't care what people thought of her. She didn't care what her reputation was, and she kind of played off of her reputation. So everybody thought she was like a stupid like party girl that did drugs and drank all the time, and she did not even care. She stopped drinking, she stopped doing drugs in this book, and people still had this really bad idea of the type of person that she was, and she didn't care. In fact, she kind of played off of that at certain times, and she kind of used that bad reputation at certain points in this book, and she's like, I don't care if people think I'm this way, like I'm not this way, but I'm gonna use it for my advantage. I thought that was really, really interesting, and it was very like respectable to not care what people think of you, not care what your reputation is. Like it doesn't matter. Like she didn't try to change people's thoughts about her. Like she would drink water in a bar, everybody thought she was drinking vodka, but she's like, one thing that I did know though from the very, very beginning, I knew Danica was gonna die. I just knew it because I knew that there was a murder that was gonna happen, and I was like, who is it that's gonna die? I thought it was either gonna be her parents, Bryce's parents, or it was gonna be Danica. But I think if you read the synopsis on the back of the book, that was something they could definitely predict. But it kind of sucked because I would have liked to not see that coming. Like that would have been a really cool twist where I've been like, oh my god, that's crazy. But I knew that she was gonna die. So I feel like that should have been left out of the synopsis. Like it was a straight up spoiler for that major like murder. Like that could have been a huge plot twist and I wouldn't have seen it coming, but she gives it away. The only thing that I'm having trouble with, and maybe somebody can help me in the comments to work this through in my head, because I feel like there was a lot of information packed in here, and sometimes like your mind doesn't soak up certain aspects of the novel, and I feel like that happened to me with this specific thing. So if you can help me out here, let me know in the comments. So obviously Micah was the murderer, right? And he murdered Danica. He wanted the horn and all of that kind of stuff. But why would Micah hire Bryce to figure out who the murderer was? Because he asked her, you know, I want you to figure out this murder. He didn't hire her to figure out where the horn was. That was Run's whole thing. So she started looking for the horn with Run. What was his name? Run? And so Micah wasn't asking her to look for the horn. He was like, I want you to solve this murder. Why would he tell her to solve the murder if he was the murderer? Why wouldn't he have told her to find the horn? I felt like that whole thing didn't fully add up. Like it was a little bit weird. I don't know. That was messy, I feel like. Because I was just confused the whole time, like why Micah would have hired her on, especially with Hunt, to find out who Danica's murderer was when it was him the whole time. Like, I don't know, like connecting the dots there for me was a little bit weird. Like that whole thing was kind of confusing to me. Like the whole time I'm like, okay, so the horn does this and you need this for this and this for this, and I was just like confused. Like that whole thing kind of confused me a little bit. Was I the only one where I was confused by that whole thing? Like why did Micah hire her? I mean, I know why, because she was her best friend, but why? Like, why Bryce? I don't know. It just seemed kind of weird to me. I feel like that could have maybe been written a little more clearly, so I could have kind of understood a little bit better. I don't know. I think I need to go back actually and reread that part, like when he's explaining it to her in the library, because I feel like maybe I just missed something. I don't know. It just seemed kind of weird to me. And another part that I absolutely adored was when she finally responded to Connor's text message. That was so good. When she said, I'm home safe. Seriously? And then when it opened up, like the mists on the island opened up and they were like waving at her, like So many good moments in this book, and so many like heart-wrenching moments and heartwarming moments in this book, especially near the end. Like I felt like there were so many good like heartwarming moments, and I felt like she did such a good job at building those relationships. Like all the relationships between all of the characters were just very, very well done, and I really, really liked that, and I felt like that's what made some of those moments so good and so heartwarming. So I was kind of thinking a little bit about Hunt and Shahar, and if that's going to kind of come back in the future books. Is that her name, Shahar? I can't remember. I think it's Shahar. Because I felt like he was obsessed with her like the entire book, right? Like he was very hung up on her. And then there was kind of some hints about him maybe realizing that he wasn't as in love with Shahar as he thought he was, or maybe he was a little bit jaded by what they were doing and he had never been treated the way that Bryce treated him. And so I don't know if there were some hints about maybe he wasn't as in love with her as he thought he was, or he was very jaded, or, you know, he kind of started to realize what true love actually looked like. I don't know. What did you guys think about that? Do you think Shahar is going to show up in future books somehow? I don't know how. I don't know. I have no idea. But I thought that that was really, really interesting, that whole plot line, and it's going to be interesting to see where that leads, if she's going to talk about that more, because I feel like it was a big thing, right? Like Shahar, 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 he was always talking about her, but it wasn't really wrapped up clearly, because why would she push this whole Shahar thing, this one person that he really, really, really loves, through the whole book, if she's not going to do something with it? So I hope not. Like, I hope it's not like this weird thing where he like has to pick between Bryce and Shahar. Like, that would be really weird and I would hate that, but who knows? Who knows what Sarah J. Maas does? Like, I mean, she's dead, so I don't know how she would bring her back, but if she did somehow, I don't know. I also really loved when we thought that Danica was just a drug dealer. Like, she just wanted the drugs. Like, that I totally believed wholeheartedly. I was like, oh my god, like Danica was just a drug dealer. Like, she was just a crappy person. And that was kind of sad and sucky. I was like, really? This is where the plot line's gonna go? Like, I was kind of disappointed, but I believed that. Like, I fully believed that Danica was just a drug dealer, but I was so happy to find out that wasn't the case. Overall, it was a really great book. I hope I'm not forgetting anything. Like, I feel like there's so much to talk about with this book. So freaking much to talk about. So comment down below some of your guys' thoughts. What were your favorite parts, your least favorite parts, things that you didn't understand or did understand, favorite characters, favorite aspects of the world. Let me know in the comments below. I'd be very, very curious to hear what your guys' thoughts are on this, because it's so good, so good. So comment down below. I'll try to respond to as many as I can. I always do. And we can just talk all about this. There's a lot to talk about, so you guys better be commenting all of your thoughts. I did a whole bunch of tabs. I'm so excited for the next book to come out. There better be smut in that one, or else I'm gonna be pissed. But I know she's coming out with Cassian and Nesta's book next, and then the sequel to this I think will come out after Cassian and Nesta's book, so, which I'm not mad about, because you guys know how much I love Cassian. So anyways guys, that is it for this kind of book wrap up, book talk video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you guys like this book, and I'm going to post after this video the book for April, which is going to be The Shadows Between Us by Trisha Levenseller. It is a shorter fantasy and it's a standalone, so it's going to be a really quick fantasy to read. It's like probably about that thick. Not very thick at all, but it's going to be fun. I've heard it's really, really good, and I'm really excited to read it. So I hope you guys read it along with me, and I will talk to you guys in my next video.